Last time in this Surah Ar-Rahman series,
So these are the sort of a layout of the subject matter of the surah. How is that all making sense together? How does everything connect together? What's the point of putting these things in this order? This is some of the stuff that we're going to try and explore as we study the surah. But at least you have a bird's eye view of what's going on inside of this surah.
Ar-Rahman allama al-Qur'an.
To help you follow along and reflect more deeply, we've created a companion workbook for this series. Download it at bayyina.com/Rahman.
There's a couple of other things before we get into the heart of the matter. A subtle and beautiful continuity. What does that mean? You have surah, right before this surah is Surah Al-Qamar. Qamar means moon. Right before that surah you have Surah An-Najm. An-Najm means the star. Okay. اقتربت الساعة وانشق القمر والنجم إذا هوى. And in Surah An-Najm, that surah, Allah mentioned the tree. إذ يغشى السدرة ما يغشى. There was a tree that got overrun. It's an interesting study. And then the surah ends with, Surah An-Najm ends with, فَاسْجُدُوا لِلَّهِ وَاعْبُدُوا. Make sajdah to Allah. So what am I saying? The moon has been mentioned, the star has been mentioned, the tree has been mentioned, and sajdah has been mentioned. Read the beginning of Surah Ar-Rahman. What do you find? Ash-shamsu wal-qamar, the moon, wal-najm, the star, yasjudan, doing sajdah. Like these pearls that were dropped earlier on in the last two surahs are now just being brought back up. And they're just right before, and then Surah An-Najm ended with sajdah, and now in the beginning of Surah Ar-Rahman you find وَالنَّجْمُ وَالشَّجَرُ يَسْجُدَانِ. Subhanallah, it's such beautiful, subtle continuity of thought and theme that's going on between these surahs. Okay, now we're ready to start.
Ar-Rahman.
So we're going to begin by exploring the meanings of Ar-Rahman. I'll give you some heads up on how this works, okay? The Arabic language is really fascinating. Every word has a story behind it. And the way you can study that story, what I like to call primary meanings and secondary meanings. You should get used to this idea. Primary meanings and secondary meanings. I've given this analogy in other lecture series, but I want it drilled in your head, so I'll give you the analogy here again. Imagine there are 4 different burgers. Yes, I said burgers. Okay? One burger has pickles, tomatoes, onions. The other one has just mayonnaise and ketchup. The other one just has onions. The other one just has lettuce. They're all different. The toppings are different. Are they still burgers? Do they taste different? No? Somebody has a problem. See me afterwards. There's something off. It's not quite the same. Somebody's missing onions, somebody's missing the ketchup, somebody's missing the pickles. They're not the same. They all have some added flavor. Essentially, they're still a burger, right? Here's why I gave you this analogy. Not because I'm hungry. I gave you this analogy because in Arabic, you can have 5 different words for anger. 5 different words, but each one of them has a different topping on it. Okay? So even though in English translation, it will say this means anger, ghadab means anger, ghayz means anger, right? And ghilza means anger. You can have multiple words and they all mean anger. But when you dig deep, you'll find there are different toppings on this anger than that one, than that one, than that one. These toppings, I call them secondary meanings. These are the secondary meanings. And this is actually one of the most beautiful things about the Arabic language. There are no synonyms. There are no synonyms. You can have close synonyms. Okay, basically they're both burgers, but they're not the same. Different toppings. So the Quran will use synonyms in itself, and you have to dig deep to find what are the added layers, what are the toppings on this word that give its meaning true flavor. So that's what we're going to do in our study. What I do with every surah, when I stop at a word, I try to identify what are the additional layers of meaning that we can learn from that give us an appreciation of this word. So, you guys tell me, what have you seen as a common translation of Ar-Rahman? Merciful, that's a common translation. the most gracious, I think that's a common translation also. Okay, I'm going to strongly disagree with both of them, and I'll show you why. Ar-Rahim, Rahman comes from the word Rahim and Rahm. And this is actually used for the womb of the mother. It says here, Mambitul walad, وَوِعَاؤُهُ fil batan, meaning the mother's belly. As the baby is growing inside the mother's belly, the bag, the sack that Allah has created to allow the baby to grow and nourish, that is actually called Ar-Rahm. Ar-Rahm is a famous hadith Qudsi in which Allah speaks with the Rahm and says, I named you by my name. Right? There's a famous hadith Qudsi like that. Sammaytuka bismi. Okay? Now, that's one meaning of the word Rahm. Now, this is a very important meaning because then if you're going to think about the word mercy, is the mother having mercy on her child? Not really. The teacher that was about to fail you and decided to give you 5 extra credit points and didn't fail you showed you what? Mercy. The police officer that pulled you over and decided not to give you a ticket showed you what? Mercy. The soldiers that were about to execute everyone in the village, but they let them go because they were unarmed, showed them mercy. In other words, mercy is associated with being spared. Mercy in English is associated with being spared. But the raham of a mother has nothing to do with being spared. The mother is not sparing the child. The mother is doing 2 things with the child. If I was to summarize, she's caring for the child constantly and unconditionally. Actually, physically, the conditions are to the disadvantage of the mother. The child is making her throw up. The child is making her constantly sick. The child, as the child grows, it is literally eating away at her. And it's causing her more and more pain. As the pregnancy continues, her life doesn't get easier. Her life only gets harder, right? The first trimester, some women are just throwing up constantly, can't sleep, can't be awake, can't lie down, can't sit up. There's no peace ever. And this baby has basically made them entirely miserable. But are they upset with the baby? No. In fact, with every gag and every vomit, they're like, I hope the baby's okay. You're dying, and the one that's killing you, you're like, I hope you're okay. Right? And then the baby gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And now her spine starts hurting. When she walks, it's like carrying a backpack full of books strapped on your front, and you walk around with that for a few months. See what that does for your spine. Right? See what does this for your back support. And how her shoulders are pulled in and her entire core is pulled in. Her legs are hurting. Her hips are hurting. She's in constant pain. Not to mention her bladder is being squeezed all the time. So she's got to go to the bathroom every 5 seconds. She can't drink anything. Every time she drinks, it's a decision. Because the bathroom is upstairs. You know? So there's laughter and there's also pain in that laughter, I hear. So... But the point of all of that is this: the mother is actually literally giving up her freedom, her comfort, herself and the child inside is just chilling. He's just, rent is paid, food service. You don't even have to get up anywhere. And when he poops too, and the poop gets cleaned up, everything's taken care of. And and as he gets older, what does he do to thank the mother? Inside the belly, he starts kicking her from the inside. It was like, and she's like, you know, this is what a child does. And then it's time for the child to not live rent-free and to get out. And when he gets out, he nearly kills this woman. He almost kills her. She bleeds like she's never bled in her life. He tears her body open. Her bones have to shift. Her body has to tear open for this child to exist. And this horrifying experience. And who caused her that bleeding? Who caused her that pain? That little creature that was like a parasite inside her. And now it comes out, and what does she do? She hugs the baby. She wants to feed the baby. When the nurse takes it away, can you bring it back? Can you bring it back? That's my almost murderer. You know? And when she feeds the baby for the first time, that's also, some describe, as painful as bleeding itself. It's not an easy pain. And she's happily feeding the baby. And then the baby, as soon as it comes out, it's crying and complaining and it wants to be taken care of, not just some of the time, all of the time. So now you just came out of a near-death experience and you are now on the full time, doesn't even begin to describe what a mother has to be to a child. There's no sleep left, there's no calm left, there's no peace left. And as this child finally learns to get a little bit independent, okay, they can crawl a little bit, that's a new anxiety because they can crawl themselves into trouble and they can put all kinds of things in their mouth. And then when they can stand up, you have to hold every corner of every table because the baby's walking that way. And you have to constantly look who's whether they're heading towards the stairs or not, or somebody might open the door too fast. Constant anxiety and trouble for this child. What does the child give you in return? Nothing. The child gives you nothing. It just gives you joy. And where did that joy come from? Not from the child. The child did nothing to earn that love. The child actually did nothing. And you're just pouring love and care constantly that started from your raham, for a mother's raham. And that's the word that Allah chose to describe one of His most powerful names, Ar-Rahman, to give us an idea of the kind of love and care, I'll say two words, love and care, that Allah demonstrates to every human being. And those two words are really important because they summarize what's happening with a mother and the child in the raham. Now why? You can care for someone without loving them. Is that possible? Yeah. In a nursing home, the nurse is taking care of the elderly. They don't love them, but they care for them. You could actually be taking care of your old parents and you have a bad relationship with them. You don't feel love for them, but you're still caring for them. You could be in a marriage, don't look the other way, where you're caring for your spouse, but you don't feel any love anymore. That can happen. Siblings can care for each other without feeling love anymore. It can dry up. That can happen. Care exists without love. It exists all the time. In most Pakistani families, actually. Or you can have love without care. Is that possible? Yeah. You could love somebody. You could love, like a child can love their mom, but it doesn't care that it's inconveniencing the mom. It doesn't care what the mom's tired. It doesn't care. I know you had a long day and I'm really worried about you. It doesn't. Get up and feed me. It loves you, but it actually technically doesn't care for you so much. It cares for itself. It's a selfish kind of love, and that childish love. There are adults who have relationships where they claim that they love, or they maybe even feel love, but their love looks like they have no ounce of what? Care. So these are two distinct things. But in the raham of a mother, both of these things reach their climax. She's absolutely in love with this creature that has no idea she exists. You are nothing. If you're a baby, you are nothing to her, mom. You're nothing to her. You don't exist to her. You're sacrificing yourself for this baby, but the baby actually sees you as non-existent. Does that remind you of a human being's relationship with Allah? Like Allah doing everything, all the time. Your lungs, the fluid in my eyeballs, the fact that my tongue is wet, the fact that I can, actually my voice box works, the fact that I can put words together, the fact that my neurons are firing right now, the fact that I can move my fingers. None of this is on autopilot. This is not like your phone when you put it on a charger and now it's going to run on its own. That an engine runs. Every single cell in my body needs the care and love from Allah to be able to function. Every neuron needs Allah's rahmah to be able to function from one second to the next. It cannot exist without Allah's caring for every bit of me. We can't begin to imagine what that rahmah is. We can't. But this is one of the two meanings, the secondary meanings of the word. We're not even at Rahman yet, just Rahm right now. The second meaning of Rahm is Rahim as-Saqa. The story behind that is, back in the day, people didn't have plastic water bottles. Back in the day, people had leather pouches, leather pouches that they put water in, leather satchels. Okay, you have to make sure that you oil your leather pouch, because once it gets dry, it can start cracking, and then when it gets cracked, it becomes weaker. So when you fill it completely with water, you'll realize that the water is going to start leaking out. So if it's a water skin, a bag, leather pouch that hasn't been taken care of, and when you fill it completely, it starts coming out, that's actually called a rahim. That filled water satchel is called a rahim when it starts leaking out. And from it, the idea was someone so filled in love for you that it starts oozing out of them. Like they can't contain it within. Like the child cannot be contained inside the belly, it comes out. And the water cannot be contained inside the skin, and it comes out. It's actually not just that Allah loves and Allah cares, but it actually comes out. It's not just contained. You see? Like sometimes you have to be tough with someone. I love you, but I have to punish you. Right? I love you, but I have to do this. This is for your own good. Right? And it's the love part of you is not coming out. You see? But Allah Azza wa Jal in this word is illustrating that the love actually pours out. It's remarkable to me that this word is an ayah by itself. And now we get to Ar-Rahman, the actual word and what it suggests. So there's two names that are similar of Allah. Of course, in the Fatiha, you guys are all familiar. Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. Allah did not use Ar-Rahim allama al-Quran. He used Ar-Rahman allama al-Quran. So how is Ar-Rahman different? Ar-Rahman is the an at the end. This is called Sighatul Mubalagha, fa'lan. So there are words in Arabic that sound like that. Ghadban, Jaw'an, Atshan. Right? And similarly, Rahman. Right? So these words have a similar spelling structure. They start with a fatha, then they have a sukoon, and then the last part has an an in it. So Ghadban, Atshan, Jaw'an, all of them have that. When words are spelled similarly in Arabic, they have similar added meanings. This is part of the toppings I was telling you. Right? Some of the toppings come from the root letter, other toppings come from the way the word is spelled, the sarf of the word, the morphology of the word. So let's learn something about that. There are three things that come out of this spelling structure. Three things. One, it has to be something extreme. So if something sounds like an, Ghadban doesn't just mean angry. That's ghadib. Ghadban means furious, extremely angry. Atish is someone who's thirsty, but atshan is actually dehydrated, extremely, extremely thirsty. Similarly, ja'i' is a hungry person, but jaw'an is extremely, extremely starving. The way you would describe a starving person would be jaw'an, okay? So Rahman is not just loving and caring. What does it mean? Extremely, overwhelmingly loving and caring. It's not just love and care. Love and care is already in Rahim. But Ar-Rahman is extreme loving care. That's the first implication of fa'lan. The second implication of fa'lan is actually that it's happening right now. It's a sighatul mubalagha of an ism fa'il. It's happening as we speak. So it's not something like, for example, if I say Kareem is a patient man. I know some guy named Kareem, and I say he's a patient man. But he might be sleeping right now. So he's not exactly patient right now. Or he might be, playing a video game right now. That doesn't mean he's patient right now. That just means he has the quality of patience. And when the time comes, he can show patience. But that doesn't mean he's demonstrating patience all the time. Rahman is not just someone who loves and cares. Actually, it means someone who is engaged in the act of demonstrating that love and care as we speak. He's doing it right now. If you say someone's reliable, does that mean they're being reliable right now? No. But if you say someone is being reliable, someone's acting reliably, what does that say? They're doing it as we speak. So Rahman actually has that huduth in it. It's happening as we speak. It's not just, when is the rahmah of Allah going to come? When is Allah going to show me care? When is Allah going to show me love? He's Ar-Rahman. He's already showing it. He's already showing it. That's the second meaning. The third meaning is actually a little bit scary. Actually, a lot of bit scary. But it takes a beautiful turn in this surah. And that is that it's actually something temporary. These extremes are associated with something temporary. Why? Because they're passing. Like as in, Ghadban is extremely angry, but you can't stay extremely angry. Or Jaw'an is extremely thirsty, you can't stay extremely thirsty. Something comes and gets rid of it. Right? Water comes, gets rid of the thirst. Food comes, gets rid of the hunger. Right? So something comes and gets rid of the anger. The same way, Ar-Rahman is an extreme mercy of Allah, but it's possible that people can do something that will disqualify them from it. There's a scary notion inside Ar-Rahman. This will make you understand, perhaps, the Sahaba, like Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, when they were contemplating the Fatiha, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, they said Ar-Rahman is for this world and Ar-Rahim is for the next life. Now, why would they say that? Because this world is temporary and the next world is permanent. And this word, even in its spelling structure, actually alludes to something temporary. Now, you can have Ar-Rahman, Allah be Ar-Rahman to you in this life, and Ar-Rahim to you in the next life. How? The only way is you don't disqualify yourself from the Rahmah of Allah. That's the only way you can do that. And that's actually one of the main subject matters of this surah. So this was some things about the meanings of the word. One last comment about that. Allah's love and care is being described at an extreme, right? It's an episode of extreme love and care from Allah. That episode is when He taught the Quran, and when He created the human being, and when He taught human beings to speak. There are three statements that are coming. We're going to get into them in a bit after this session. This session, we're only going to talk about Ar-Rahman. We're not going to talk about anything else. But we're going to see what are the extreme manifestations? This episode of extreme rahmah from Allah, where did it show up? It shows up in three places, and those are the three places that are coming right after this ayah. So now let's do some other things. About the placement of Ar-Rahman. Is it the subject of a sentence? You know how you say, if I say, New Jersey, and you're like, oh, what about New Jersey? Tell me your opinion. Because I told you my subject, grammatically speaking, I told you my subject, I didn't give you a predicate. I didn't say New Jersey has amazing, I'm sure, something. Once I find it, I'll let you know. I used to live here, by the way. Or is it, so Ar-Rahman, and then you're like, Ar-Rahman what? Right? And maybe the predicate is Allama al-Quran, Khalaq al-Insan, Allama. That's the predicate. That's what He wants you to know about Ar-Rahman. That's one way. Another is it the predicate of a sentence? Meaning, is there something understood before it? He is Ar-Rahman. And you know, sometimes, for example, there's a match, you really wanted to watch the final, right? And instead of saying the final started, you just say final. Or you just say it started. But started means what? The final started. So you just mentioned the predicate, you don't mention the subject, but people get it. So it could be that some scholars look at this as this is the predicate of an existing subject. Not very convincing explanation, but still that's found in our tafsir. Or, very interestingly, is it a declaration all on its own? It's as if this one word is a statement by itself that doesn't even need a predicate. On its own, it's an entire thesis. On its own, this word is guidance. Even if you said nothing else and you just said Ar-Rahman, you'd just be lost in a universe of thought, right? Like you would think, I want to think about this statement. I want to think about this discussion. I want to think about this paragraph. I want to think about this book. Here Allah is saying, just think about what? This word. Just get lost inside this word. And He stopped the ayah there. Ar-Rahman. Then, Ibn Ashur. These are additional thoughts about the placement of Ar-Rahman as the opening ayah of the surah. وَيَجُوزَ أَنْ يَكُونَ وَاقِعًا مَوْقِعَ الْكَلِمَاتِ الَّتِي يُرَادُ لَفْظُهَا لِلتَّنْبِيهِ عَلَى غَلَطِ الْمُشْرِكِينَ إِذْ أَنْكَرُوا, this is a typo, إِذْ أَنْكَرُوا هَذَا الْإِسْمِ. So you see in the Quran, in another place in Surah Al-Furqan, the people who didn't believe in Allah, they said, Mar-Rahman. What Rahman? What do you keep talking about Ar-Rahman? So they were condescending towards the name Ar-Rahman. And it's as if they asked sarcastically and Allah used their sarcasm and say, you want to know who Ar-Rahman is? I'll give you a whole surah to tell you who Ar-Rahman is. The topic of the surah is, and the first ayah of the surah is Ar-Rahman, as if everything you learn in the surah will be an explanation of what? Ar-Rahman. That's what it's going to be. Okay? وافتتح باسم الرحمن فكان فيه تشويق جميع السامعين إلى الخبر. Ar-Rahman, when the mushrikun heard it, they got annoyed by this word. Right? الذي يخبر به عنه إذ كان المشركون لا يألفون هذا الاسم. Mushrikun did not like to hear this word. قالوا ما الرحمن. They said, what's Ar-Rahman? فهم إذا سمعوا هذه الفاتحة ترقبوا ما سيرد من الخبر عنه. So when they heard this name, they got weary about what's coming. Like, we don't like Ar-Rahman, so I'm sure he's going to say things we're not going to like to hear. That's what the mushrikun are anticipating. والمؤمنون إذا طرق أسماعهم هذا الاسم استشرفوا لما سيرد من الخبر المناسب لوصفه هذا مما هم متشوقون إليه من آثار رحمته. And when the believer hears Ar-Rahman, the mushrikun hear Ar-Rahman, they're agitated about what's coming, and they should be, because it's coming after them. But the believer hears Ar-Rahman, and what happens? The opposite happens. He's like, oh, Allah opened with that? Allah opened with Ar-Rahman? Wow, I need to know what this is. I need to know what more he says. Because now he used a name that for a believer is the sweetest word that a believer can hear. You know? This is the one name of Allah that we are desperately in need of. Right? There were two criticisms of the mushrikun that both got answered in the opening of Surah Ar-Rahman. One was, I told you, what is Ar-Rahman? And Allah answers that question. And the other was, إِنَّمَا يُعَلِّمُهُ بَشَرٌ. The Quran, some guy is teaching him. He just goes and hides in hiding somewhere, and somebody teaches him these surahs or whatever. This is not God. And Allah says, in fact, it is Ar-Rahman who taught the Quran. Ar-Rahmanu allama al-Quran. So Allah is responding to that idea that it's someone other than Allah teaching the Quran. We're going to dive deep into that when we get to Allama al-Quran. So Allah inspires a question, and then the rest of the surah answers it. Ar-Rahman actually inspires a question. Just like when I said New Jersey, what? What about Jersey? Right? You got insecure. So when you hear Ar-Rahman, you're like, oh, what about him? And then the answer is going to come throughout the surah. Now some really interesting, cool facts, and I'm going to be done with the first session. Okay. The pre-Arab use of Ar-Rahman. This is, remember Abraha? You remember who Abraha was? South Arabia, Yemen, right? They had their own language, and actually it's found now that in the inscriptions of Abraha, they actually use Rahman. And in South Arabian dialects, the pre-Arabic and Aramaic, the an at the end was actually the al in the beginning. So we say Ar-Rahman, and they used to say Rahmanan. So the for them was an added an at the end. And so that's found in these inscriptions with the power and the help and the support of Rahmanan. So when they say, who's Ar-Rahman? Actually the Christians were familiar with Ar-Rahman. And the Jews were familiar with Rahum and Rahman and Rahmanan. That's found in the Hebrew Bible also. Okay? So so what I'm first going to get at is the Bible mentions this word. Jewish literature has Rahmanan in it and Rahum in it with the similar meanings. The most merciful, the loving, the caring, etc., etc. These are the meanings that are found within them. Okay, this is from Ibn Manzur's Lisan al-Arab, which is a lexicon of the Arabic language. وحكى الأزهري عن أبي العباس في قوله الرحمن الرحيم جمع بينهما لأن الرحمن عبراني. He actually believed that Ar-Rahman is related to Hebrew. Actually, one of the opinions that's found is Ar-Rahman is connected to Hebrew. Ar-Rahim Arabi, and Ar-Rahim is the Arabic rendition. So Ar-Rahman came from Rahmanan, according to some, and then made its way into Arabic. Then he gives a piece of poetry. We don't have to get into the poetry, but you see at the bottom of it, Sulbahum Rahmana Qurbana. This is pre-Islam. Rahman was being used. This is to answer the question. When they said, what Ar-Rahman? We never heard of Ar-Rahman. Yeah, you have. Why you got to act like Fir'aun? Because Fir'aun had this problem. He knew something and he acted like he didn't know. The pharaohs became pharaohs because Yusuf helped them survive against drought. That's how they became a superpower. So who did they know about? Yusuf. And they revered Yusuf as a savior of Egypt. When Musa came, you know what Fir'aun said? ما سمعنا بهذا في آبائنا الأولين. We never heard of this before. We never heard of any message like this. And then he got called out by the believer of Egypt. He said, وَلَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ يُوسُفُ مِنْ قَبْلُ. Remember Yusuf came to you? Yusuf came to you before. So the mushrikun have this habit, the kuffar have this habit of acting like they don't know something when they know it. Right? So when they said, Mar-Rahman, we don't know Ar-Rahman, actually you did. That was already known. Okay? This is just a South Arabian Jewish scriptures, and the underlined word that you and I cannot read actually reads Rahmanan. Okay, so that just is some small examples. Here's just a last comment on this. From the reading of the Jewish Sabaean inscriptions, it is clear that Rahmanan is called Lord of the Jews, Master of Heaven. Interesting, Master of Heaven, meaning the skies, right? Rabbul Mashriqaini wa Rabbul Maghribaini. Interesting. The praiseworthy one, Dhul Jalali wal Ikram, right? Phrases that are going to occur in the surah, right? So that's just a little bit of something that I wanted to share with you. In this session, we've got at least an introduction to Ar-Rahman now. My hope is today before we end, we can get to Allamahul Bayan. I hope so. I make no promises. But at least, the beginnings of surahs take time. And then inshallah, things pick up the pace a little bit. I do have the full intention to completing the surah with you guys.
Coming up next time in this Surah Ar-Rahman series.
And somebody can say, and I've been told this before too, how is he Ar-Rahman? He made hell. I mean, people are going to sin for what, 50 years, 80 years, and you want them to burn forever and ever? That doesn't sound like very merciful. It sounds sadistic and cruel. It sounds like torture. It sounds, the last thing that comes to mind is love and care, right? So this is a logical question many have in their mind. And they have trouble understanding Allah's rahmah when put in this perspective. Well, this surah is actually, one of its goals is to answer that question.